I'd appreciate it if you would stay quiet, I guess. So our first candidate is Catherine Deemer. Welcome to Blissfield, first of all.
Thank you.
So please share with the village council what you have done since your first interview to get to know the Blissfield community.
Absolutely. Since we last spoke, thank you so much again for the opportunity. Since we last spoke, I spent quite a bit of time researching, attending council meetings and continuing to look at the village, especially the financial picture of the village. On a personal level, I got to get to know the community a little bit better last week, coming to the river raising cleanup. It was very fun, a little bit muddy. Got to see some of the Black Squirrel Antique Festival. I was glad to hear that event was such a success. And I got to eat at Lena's on my way out of town, which was delicious. So on a professional level, like I mentioned, I've looked more into the financial health of the city as well, since I know that that is such an important thing for both the council and the community to know. And I know I've heard concerns expressed during council meetings or from the auditor or from community members about the financial health of the city. So I looked more specifically into that. I ran some initial analysis on the fiscal capacity of the city. And the good news is that, of course, you never want to be in any kind of fiscal distress. But the good news from my perspective, at least, is that the kind of fiscal distress you guys are in is the most fixable one. So I was really pleased to see that. And so I looked at some of the initial numbers, and I also consulted with my mentor, who is she got her PhD in municipal finance, and she's actually the former city comptroller for the city of Grand Rapids. And she also agreed that your problems are very fixable, which is great to hear. So really just looking more into that financial health and really looking and getting to know the community better as well.
Thank you.
And I know that we have had the opportunity to meet at the river and got money together. So Gwen Dusa, and welcome. Please take us through all the steps you would take, Katie, as village administrator to develop our annual budget.
Absolutely. So the very first thing that I would love to start, well, backing up, is that I understand that you guys have been in the midst of a process to really update your financial policies. And so that's one of the first things that we need to get done, is really have those financial policies in place and a budget calendar in place, which you guys are already starting to do, which is great. The second thing that I really like to focus on at the beginning of the budget process is a strategic plan for the year. Obviously, it would be a little bit late this year, but finding out what the goals of the council are so that we can explicitly tie the goals of the council and the goals of the community to our financial budget. Then moving forward, talking with department heads, having them develop what they think their budgets are going to be. We'll get the numbers from the state for the revenues and in terms of property tax rates and things like that, have the property tax hearing, and really just continue down step by step to be able to start forming drafts of the budget. But finding ways to incorporate the goals and finding ways to incorporate many drafts of the council of your wishes to help make sure that the budget that we have is the best one for the year. So really just holding those meetings, developing drafts, and work very closely with Brandon on the budget process to make sure that we have a budget that works for all of us by September 30th.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barb McHenry. Please tell us the last time that you dealt with a difficult ethical question or issue, and how did you handle it, and what was the outcome?
Yeah, so ethics is something that's really super important to me. I really value the trust and of the community, and that starts with good ethics. And so generally in my career so far, I've not had to deal with too many massive ethical quandaries, but I have had to deal with a few minor ones. And one of the resources that I really make good use of is that as a member of ICMA, I have access during any time to call their ethics advisors and get advice from them on what the right thing to do in the situation is. And using those values that we would develop during the strategic plan, using those values, using the ICMA code of ethics, using best practices from my relationship that I've learned from my relationships with other city managers in the area in order to help make the right decision and make the most transparent decision. And once that decision is made, it's very important as well to be able to communicate that decision effectively and explain why it is that we made that decision and why that's the right ethical decision. An example of that actually is that, so in my work with the city of Wayland, I was asked to help with the election process that we were doing. But I found out that in order to do the election process, I would have to declare a political party, which is something that's really not allowed under the ICMA Code of Ethics. So I worked with our ethics advisor from ICMA, I worked with our clerk, I consulted some of the other professionals that I know, and we found a way for me to still be able to help with the election in terms of supporting our clerk in a way that was still helpful, but also ethical.
Hi, Katie. How do you plan to integrate into our community?
Yeah, I love your community. I'm very excited about living here and working here and participating in different community events. As I mentioned, I was at the River Raisin cleanup. I love volunteering, and I would plan to volunteer with the Rotary and with other community organizations as well as opportunities came up. I've already looked up when yoga is at Royal Yoga and when you guys are having aquatic classes down at the aquatic center. And so I'm very excited to participate in community events, to attend Movies on Lane, and to participate in the summer reading program at the library, and to really involve myself in the community because that is such a core value of mine.
Catherine, I might go. What do you believe you will find as the most challenging aspect of leading the Village of Blissfield's community?
Yeah, I think that perhaps the biggest challenge, but also the biggest opportunity, and what I'm really excited about, is that from what I've learned from the history of the village, there's been a lot of reactivity, and that we maybe make plans, we set them aside. We've had, like, I think, a walkability study and a couple other studies that have not been used to their full extent. And so really gathering all of those data, gathering that information, and finding ways to incorporate it into our proactive everyday practice. It's definitely a big challenge, but one I'm really looking forward to.
Hi, Catherine. Jerry Hayes. What steps would you take, that is, to bring additional economic development to Blissfield?
Yeah, so economic development is really fun. I just enjoy it. And I've had the opportunity, not only in my practice and in my studies, to learn about economic development. I've also been involved in teaching economic development to other students. And in my role as I was asked to participate in a state advisory committee, the Economic Development and Land Use Policy Advisory Committee, and where I'm actually advising the legislature on what kinds of economic development tools that municipalities might want to see in the future. And so given that knowledge of tools we already have, tools that we are going to maybe have soon, I've identified a couple of tools that I think might fit Blissfield really well. The first being really finding a way to address some of our brownfield problems. I understand when I talked to Tim Richardson over at Lenawee County, he identified 3 or 4 brownfield sites off the top of his head that would be great spots for redevelopment in the village, that we could really work on environmentally remediating those sites and addressing that. Another thing that I think might be a great fit for the village is that you have a lot of wonderful family-run businesses, but as we know, sometimes those family-run businesses, they might not have a clear successor in place. And so working with our schools, especially, to maybe identify some young entrepreneurs who might want to train under some of these family-run businesses and take over when they retire, so that we're retaining the businesses that we have.
Thank you.
I'm Bob Valdez, by the way, sorry. In your experience, how do you motivate staff that you believe are not producing at full capacity?
Yeah, so I think in terms of human resources, something that I do is that I really work on identifying, I would work with them, identifying maybe what's holding them back or what's not working for them, and helping them to realize their full capacity through identifying the roadblocks and then removing those roadblocks so that they can more fully act inside their role. Whether that means training, maybe we provide some additional training, or like we send them to a conference or something like that. Or maybe that means that we are changing our policies and procedures to make them work more effectively. But finding a way to empower employees to be able to fulfill their role the best.
Thank you.
Alrighty, if you were talking to a person who was looking to relocate to Lenawee County, how would you specifically recruit them to choose Blissfield?
Yeah, I think that, when I first came to Blissfield, and this is something I would share with them as well, I immediately felt at home. That there is a wonderful atmosphere to this village in that every person that I have met so far really is very passionate about what they do. They're passionate about their community and they want to make their community a better place. And that's something, and they want to do the right thing. And that's something that cannot be replaced and that is not present in many communities. So a very strong sense of identity.
Oh, that's fine, thank you.
How do you, as our new administrator, foster a team approach amongst our downtown business community?
Yeah, so as I shared in my portfolio with you, one of my first priorities as village administrator would be to be listening and learning from our community, including meeting individually with the business leaders and finding out from them, what is it that they're looking for? What kind of things do they need to be more successful? And using that data and using the data that we've collected from the DDA survey that's going on and some of our other public participation stuff that's possibly with McKenna Group coming up to really engage them and find out what it is that will be most helpful for them. And then working to develop a strategy to make sure that we can help them achieve those goals. I really see the village, one of my philosophy of government really revolves around that local government is one of the only institutions that touches every other institution, including our business community. And so because we are the one that connects all of those other institutions, we are able to connect them to the resources that they need and connect them to the places that they need to go in a way that's really unique for local government. And so one example of that recently was with the city of Wayland, actually. So we have this American Rescue Plan that's come down from the federal government. And so I held a workshop with all of our business leaders, explaining to them how to use the federal grant system and how they can access the resources that the federal government is providing. So I really see local government as that conduit that's going to connect these institutions and provide them with partnerships that are valued.
Thank you.
How have you successfully worked through employee conflict?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have worked, so during my time with the city of Wayland, I've gotten to do a lot of human resources work and really helping employees to understand there was some conflict with employees there and helping employees to see both sides of the issue and explain to them, communicate the why of what was happening, communicate both sides and act as a facilitator between the two of them to connect and to help guide them through the process of figuring out a way to work together.
Catherine, what would be your number one goal to accomplish your first year in office?
Yeah, I think my number one goal would be, as I mentioned earlier, I talked a little bit about that proactivity. I would love to have a really successful strategic plan that we are utilizing and that we are financially tying to our budget in a way that allows us to more fully tie performance in with our budget, and so that we are able to have that structural soundness. I think kind of going with that, part of that will be establishing structures. I know, like updating the personnel handbook or updating some of these policies and things like that, that will help us to more structurally act proactively.
Catherine, a resident has just entered your office to complain about the weeds growing around the 2 stop signs on Royal Street. Take us through the steps you would take to resolve the issue from the moment the resident enters your office.
Yes, so this really comes back to communication, right? And so the very first thing that we need to do in communication is really listen to people. Listen to what their concerns are, hear their concerns, because they just, a lot of times people just want to be heard. They want to know that their opinion is valued and listened to. Secondly, we need to communicate the why. We need to come up with, talk about, maybe provide some context about what that situation is. I guess in this situation, there's not too much context in that, so the next step would really be to follow up and say, okay, these are the action steps I'm going to take. I will contact DPW, we'll get this resolved for you. And then following up with the resident later on to explain to them what we did, when we did it, and let them know that their concern is appreciated, that we appreciate when people come and bring us things.
Thank you.
Communication is key to success. How would you plan to effectively communicate with the village council and residents?
Yeah, so I think the very first thing is kind of similar to what I just said, in that we have to start by being very open and transparent about what we're doing, why we're doing it, when we're doing it, and how we're doing it. And that especially in a community where maybe there's been some situations in the past where a little bit of trust has been broken, that we need to meet that with radical transparency. And that we need to be very honest and upfront and very transparent about everything that we're doing. And so I would plan to, I love some of the things that have been implemented by interim administrator McCleary, like the village after hours, or the new format for the council decisions in the packets with like the policy alternatives and things like that. Those are great first steps. I think just continuing on that same path of being very open and transparent about what we're doing it, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, when we're doing it, and what the consequences of those actions might be. That's really one of the main roles of an administrator, is that I'm here to provide expert opinion to you about what the consequences of any given action might be, so that you can make the best decision as the elected official.
Thanks.
What are the 3 most important personal qualities that you bring to the position?
Yeah, so I think the first is a focus on communication. As I talked about, just transparency and integrity, and being an advocate, both for the community and for the council, and being someone who can bring these things to conclusion. And also take the decisions of council and communicate them back to the public, working on civic engagement. Some really great things that I've done in the past that I think would really fit well here is in Wayland, we did some policy briefs where we would explain different policies by the county or the city to the residents, maybe a newsletter, things like that, so that people are getting the information that they need from their community, working on social media plan, things like that. I think the second thing is data-driven expertise. I'm someone who's very deliberate. I take action. I'm not too fast, I'm not too slow, but I take action and then I move forward with that action. And that plays into this idea of proactivity, that I really value proactivity, and that we're going to make expert decisions based on the data that we have, based on surveys, based on these walkability studies, based on non-motorized path studies, whatever we have, we are going to use that data to make expert decisions. And then finally, just this focus on collaboration and partnerships. You know, I chose Michigan to do my master's and stay where I was born and raised, because I really want to work and live in Michigan. And because of that, I've been able to start building some collaboration and partnerships, both on the state level and on a community level. So I have a huge network of other managers and administrators, as well as contacts at the state level that I know will be of great help. And continuing, so not only those relationships that I built, but that I will go out and build other relationships with our neighboring townships and things like that in order to act more collaboratively.
Please share your knowledge of public infrastructure, including water, wastewater, and streets.
Yeah, so safe water is a very important issue for our citizens, as well as public infrastructure. You know, we have a huge problem across the state that our public infrastructure is really failing en masse. And so as I've said, transparency and honesty throughout these processes are key. And really developing communications that's going to show our improvement on the water and sewer issue, on infrastructure issues, then that we are taking action to address these problems. My skills are really lying within coordinating with the state officials on this issue to ensure compliance, avoid fines when possible, and really learn the tools and resources that we have available to us. There's so many great grants out there, other programs that I've been involved with at times that I know that we can utilize to most effectively fix these problems. And then I would also coordinate with staff to develop these programs as well. I think the most important thing here is, you know, I'm not a civil engineer, but managers aren't supposed to be experts in everything. But what we do know is that we know where the experts are to ask. We know what the support resources are and what kind of opportunities are out there. And we know what questions to ask of the experts to get the most relevant information so that we can act in the best possible way.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the village council?
Yeah, so I guess what would, the first is kind of a more abstract question, I guess, but what would make you happiest to see in the village in the next, like what is something that you really wish that we had in the village that you would like to see?
So me personally, I love living here, but one cause of concern is that most of our residents leave for services or shopping or even adult leagues or hobbies of nature. So I'd love to be able to provide more of a livable experience or retain people in the community, especially our adults, and offer just a more of a wider variety of services, and especially through our Parks and Rec. So we have made some changes to our Parks and Rec structure, and I hope those changes will have a huge positive impact on our residents going forward.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I guess, what kind of transition do you envision seeing between interim administrator McClary and your new village administrator?
Ask that again, Keith.
What kind of transition do you envision between interim administrator McClary and your new village administrator?
We would have, the way I see it is that Darwin would stay on for a few more weeks to help you get, show you some of the things that he's been working on and hopefully get you moving in the right direction.
Okay.
And that's what I think we have planned to have Darwin in the transition.
Right, especially now since we've started the budget, I think there's a lot,
Yes.
budget talks anyway, there's a lot to catch.
Yes.
I would think that there would be a smooth
new
transition.
Okay.
Yeah,
There would not be any difficulty as far as not sharing information, certainly.
Oh, no, I wouldn't imagine so.
I think for speaking for council, residents and yourself, I'd extend the opportunity for Darwin and yourself to make a bit of that decision and guide us there. I would like to see the easiest transition possible. There is a lot going on currently, so the quicker you can get up to speed, that would be great. But having Darwin as a resource is excellent as well, so.
Well, I've been going to the council meetings the last couple of months, so that's helped catch me up a little bit, but absolutely, there's definitely a lot more to catch up on as well. So, thank you all so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Frank.
It says Frank.
We're gonna start on time, we're starting early.
3 o'clock, no, we won't start till 3:45.
I've heard all about the, oh, yeah.
My neighbor,
She was a national finalist. No, like, he just treated all of like people that cover. It would go all over. No, mostly like, he works
That's fine.
Yeah, I was.
I just wanted to cause staff might
Other steps. Now, earlier they said that she's graduating from medicine. They said you're allowed. So that I understood, so then Joe said you. So my son called last night. Yeah. I was invited to that. was in
I went to Alan.
There wasn't a whole lot over. The lady, she says,
For the article. I got a pretty good idea where it's There was a tree there at one time. I still kind of see what the tree was. Blew over. Before I bought the house. Mine has a fence.
I thought that they would have.
Mine's a gold.
Oh, I just.
This old house. They got us pretty good. Yeah, that.
She said. I had no idea.
It's too nice outside for that. It's too nice outside for that.
You guys have. I see a lot of those.
My mom yeah, it's really right about there, and then she became the secretary, and she sat right up there. Right where the foyer is. It was just a part of the state. Where's your sister?
There's a guy, more,
Those are the big projects. Yeah, tear it into that.
it's huge.
If you got the cell.
The biggest thing was cost for shot. Usually say every time it's flooded, they bring the cost. Raise those costs. Basically, we put them up at building. And you don't have the plan. Well, monkeys, there were 26 people.
All right, we're gonna begin our second interview. Jason Smith. Welcome to Blissfield. My name is Bob Valdez.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Trustees.
Yeah. All right, please share with the village council what you have done since the first interview to get to know Blissfield community.
Quite a bit, actually. I was here Monday, parked my car out back and walked around for about 2 hours, walked through the residential neighborhoods. And it was more of a, just to kind of see how the neighborhoods reacted to me being from sort of out of town. Everyone was incredibly friendly. I sort of treated it as if I was someone who was moving to the community. I wasn't really looking for typical village manager things like code violations and stuff like that. I just wanted to walk the neighborhoods, see what the houses look like, see what the neighborhoods were like. Additionally, I took a stroll through downtown and peeked in the windows because it was a holiday, unfortunately, but thankfully I have a good relationship with Heather, the DDA director, Main Street director, and it was nice to be able to catch up with her a little bit for the last couple of days to get up to speed on what's been happening economic development wise. And it was my understanding that she kind of took over with Parks and Rec as well. So we had some good conversations about things that are going with Parks and Rec and programming and needs and areas of opportunity and things like that. I attended the budget goal setting sessions the last couple of days and was had some great information there about some of the things that the trustees and the council as a whole were looking for in terms of goals and what you were looking for improvements and things like that as we go through the budget process yet again coming up here pretty soon. It's different for me because my budget cycle is July to June. So when they were doing budget session, I'm like, wait a minute, this should have already been done, but I digress. So right in my wheelhouse, and I just finished a lot of that up. So got some good information out of those, and a lot of the things that were discussed by the council were a lot of things that were echoed by some of the staff, Heather that I spoke to in terms of areas of need and areas of opportunity. But yeah, a lot of walking around on the ground and just touring the community.
Thank you.
Well, talking about the budget, my name is Gwen Dusa. Please take us through all the steps you would take as village administrator to develop our annual budget.
That is an excellent question, trustee. I am a team concepts type of leader. I like to get as much feedback as I can from department heads, give them all the tools they need to succeed, or as many as we can reasonably afford in a single year. So that's working with Treasurer Hudson and the department staff and finding out what exactly they need, what we need from a capital improvements plan standpoint. I know infrastructure was mentioned. So finding as much money as humanly possible in our own personal budget, looking at some of the citizens budget reviews and things like that. The fund balance seems to be in pretty good shape. There's some debts, a couple of water sewer bonds that are coming off in the next 6 years. So that's a positive for us as well. And basically finding all the money we can, earmarking it for the things that are important to all of you, and then finding grant money to offset some of those costs so that we can reallocate those funds to other things that we would like to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Barb McHenry. Please tell us the last time you dealt with a difficult ethical issue. How did you handle it, and what was the outcome?
What time is it? A difficult ethical issue. Wow, that's thankfully I haven't really run into one or too many of them, I should say, in my career. Without giving away too many specifics, we ran into an issue with some time card manipulation, unfortunately, in the last handful of months. The community that I'm in, it was an unfortunate situation and really a key member of our staff. And it's unfortunate, but those types of ethical things we absolutely cannot stand for, especially in a smaller community that I'm in currently. Every dime counts, and when things like that happen, it's unfortunate, and you hate to see it, especially with somebody who's crucial to your team, but we had to fortunately let them go. And we've made do. We've had to kind of scramble to divvy up some of the roles and some of the duties that they undertook, but ethical things come up, ethical things happen, and you deal with them and recover as best you can, but they are 100% not to be tolerated. This is one of the biggest things in government is transparency and ethics, and if you don't have that, then really shouldn't be here. Thank you.
Hi, Jason. James Wright's in here. How do you plan to integrate into our community?
First things first, I've been looking at the housing market, trying to find a place. The commute's not terrible, it's about what I commute now, but I've heard a lot of great things about Blissfield from Heather in our conversations, and so starting to look for housing and things like that. My kids are very excited about looking at an opportunity in the school. They're both getting into band, so they're hoping to jump right into the marching band. As far as me personally, it operates the same way as it would when I was in the DEA. It's going to all the business owners and having conversations with them. What do they need? What do they want to see out of from the village's standpoint? And then obviously having conversations with the council as a whole, both individually and as a group, to find out what your needs are, what areas of opportunity you see, meeting with department heads, and finding out what they need and getting them the tools that they need to succeed. Outside of these walls, it's a lot of diving in headlong. So learning about the library and the schools, and finding a place to live as close as humanly possible, and diving headfirst into the community.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jason. I'm Mike Gunter. What do you believe you will find as the most challenging aspect of leading the Blissfield community?
The most challenging aspects is a fantastic question. You've all seen my resume, obviously, so this would be my first foray into running a full village. And despite all of the training and all the education that you have, until you actually step into the fire, you never really know how things are going to go. So it's that unknown, I guess, would be the biggest challenge for me. Is have I really prepared myself to do what I've been trained to do, both educationally and through my work as an elected official, and learning with our city manager and learning with the current city manager I work with. And I'm confident that I have done those things, and I'm confident that I can lead, or I wouldn't be standing here. But that's probably the biggest challenge for me, is that first step through the door, that first day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Jason, I'm Jerry Hayes. What steps would you take to bring additional economic development to Blissfield?
It's the same opportunities really anywhere you go, Trustee Hayes. You find the areas of opportunity. You look at your surveys and your feedback from the community. What do they need? What do they want to see to come in so that their dollars stay here? You look at your retail leakage. Where are we losing dollars? For example, in Eaton Rapids, we lose about $1 million just in women's clothing alone. So if we can recruit someone who has a women's boutique, and we did a trial run, one of our real estate agents had some space in the front of her building. She put some women's clothing out there for sale that she had purchased, and it was relatively successful over a weekend. And now we've been looking for an opportunity to find someone to pick up that ball and run with it. Additionally, it's working with the developers and working with the business opportunities that want to come to you as well. In Eaton Rapids, I'm working currently with a cell phone provider, carrier, whatever you want to call them, to get them a suitable place to stay in Eaton Rapids, and they want to be in the community. So it's working hand in hand with them to find what works for them, working with your business owners to fit the parameters that they need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In your experience, how do you motivate staff that you believe are not producing at full capacity?
That is an excellent question, Your Honor. For me, leadership is about giving people the tools that you need to succeed. So if they are underperforming, one of two things are happening. They're either underperforming by choice, or they're underperforming because I haven't given them what they need to succeed. And if it's the latter, then it's having that conversation, letting them know we're underperforming here. Where are the weaknesses? Where have I failed you? Where have you sort of not necessarily failed the community or failed the department or failed, but what do we need to come together to improve your productivity? And if it's reasonable and it's something they really should have had all along, I'm happy to give them the tools they need, give them the opportunity to get themselves back together and get that moving in the right direction. I had quite a bit of that in my younger days. Before my undergrad, working in a call center, I supervised 175 employees, and obviously you can't make every single one of them happy, and you can't make every single one of them perform. But some of them, it was just meandering their schedule around so that they could get their kid dropped off to school and get them picked up, or just taking the time to listen to them. And those were the tools that they needed to succeed. It wasn't anything personally I needed to do. So it's just having that open door and letting them know that they can come to you if they have concerns or issues, and working through those to hopefully get them to perform at their peak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if you were talking to a person who was looking to relocate in Lenawee County, how would you specifically recruit them to choose Blissfield?
Blissfield is a village that is incredible. As I mentioned, I walked the neighborhoods, and literally everyone that I came across said hello, waved, was incredibly friendly. You know, it wasn't, I didn't feel out of place. I felt home. And which was nice, because in Jackson, where I currently live, you don't get that in a lot of different neighborhoods. You don't feel like you're welcome. It's sort of, why are you here kind of thing. But yeah, walking through the neighborhoods was incredible. The opportunities that are here for Parks and Rec is phenomenal. The community pool, the library system is fantastic. And from what I've been able to brush up on the schools, it looks like they're performing incredibly well as well. So those would be the things that me personally, as a parent and as someone who's looking to possibly relocate here, those are the things that I would want to hear.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How do you, as our new administrator, foster a team approach amongst our downtown business community?
That's an excellent question, trustee. I would probably take the same approach I took as the DDA director in Eaton Rapids. I literally walk the downtown every single week, sometimes 3-4 times a week. Just stop in, touch base, say hello, ask how things are going. At first, it was a little difficult because sometimes as the outsider, if you will, your business community will just kind of give you that standard, oh, it's going okay, it's going pretty good, you know. And then now I'm starting to get them to open up more. These are the things I need, these are the things that I'm looking for. And now they, instead of seeing me sort of as an adversarial kind of outsider coming in, I'm an asset to them. And they lean on me, and they know that they can come to me with things that they need. If they are struggling with technology, we can find them grants to get them technology upgrades. If they're struggling with getting their taxes paid, or they don't know how to navigate those waters and they just opened up, we have, I worked out an agreement with one of our local banks to have someone on staff who specializes in LLC filings and paperwork and all of that stuff with the state to make sure that they're legal and they're ready to go. Instead of being sort of that overseer and you know, the only time they ever see me is if I'm coming to cite them or talk to them about a problem. They come to me knowing that there's plenty of opportunity. We're more of a partner than anything else.
Thank you.
Jason, how have you successfully worked through employee conflict?
It is always difficult with employee conflict. You really have to get to the root of the problem. And usually it's something philosophical between two people. And you handle that as best you can, whether it's you do your best to avoid whatever topic it is that sets them off, or you move them to another department where they may be as good or better of a fit. You try your best to not let it be the cause of a termination, or not let it be the reason why someone leaves, because two people can't get along. And so for me, it's, you know, we're all adults. If two people have an issue, come into my office, we'll sit down, we'll lock the door, we'll hash it out, and then we'll shake hands and off we go. If we can't come to a reasonable conclusion there, then other things have to happen. We have to move people around, shuffle people around. Occasionally you have to let people go, and that's just the way it is. And it's unfortunate, you hate to see it, but it happens from time to time.
Thank you.
Jason, what would be your number one goal to accomplish in your first year in office?
Really, my first year in office, I would like to see sort of where you're headed already with regard to community development, Parks and Rec. In Eaton Rapids, we have a quality of life department. That department handles Parks and Rec, handles neighborhood relations, and handles our community development programming. So that's everything from The Mr. Curbside grants to give people new siding where they may not have necessarily been able to afford it. They coordinate all of that. They handle 95% of our grant writing. They handle all of our parks and rec programming. And really, they are our go-to resource for all the good and positive things in the community. And they do a wonderful job of it, even with the negative side of things. If somebody gets a building code violation, for example, they have a broken window or their roof is falling apart, along with that notice and along with that citation, we also send them a packet that says, I got a citation now. Go to this website, call us, here's some resources that we have available to you that we can help you, low to no cost, out of pocket for you kind of situation. Michigan has a lot of those types of programming. So that's probably first is getting those, getting that staff aligned to do something like that. It saves quite a bit of money, especially when the grant money starts coming in, because now you can reallocate limited resources to other programming. And getting those roles defined. I know it's brand new. I believe in the last 3 or 4 months that's sort of transitioned. So that's probably the first thing, is getting those staff roles aligned, getting them a clear path to what it is that each person is responsible for, what they need to do, and then turning them loose to succeed. Along with that, working with the department heads to find out what they need. Infrastructure is big, I know, for a lot of you on council. So looking at our needs and what we can afford in the first handful of years, what we need to do after the bonds start to fall away. Getting a lot of those things. There's some sidewalks I noticed on 223. They're a little bit on the narrow side, so maybe work on some of that stuff with safe routes to schools through NDOT and some of those programs to get those widened out a little bit. And really kind of understanding what the direction that you want to take.
All right, Jason, a resident has just entered your office to complain about the weeds growing up around the 2 stop signs on Royal Street. Take us through the steps you would take to resolve the issue from the moment the resident enters your office.
That happens so often. Even in my department where I don't really handle any of that, we get that issue quite a bit. The first step is to find out exactly where it is, for starters. Find out if it's on the DPW's radar in the next day or two. If it just takes somebody taking a couple minutes out of their day with our maintenance team to just slide over there and knock them out while we can. That's a pretty simple request to handle. It's not something that's going to be overly taxing for our team, and it's not overly taxing for me to make it happen for them. But yeah, it's a pretty simple request, all things considered. And if it's on the radar in the next handful of days, that hopefully is satisfactory to them. They'll be out there. If I can give them a concrete answer, we'll be out there Tuesday to take care of it. And usually that helps.
Thank you.
Communication is key to success. How would you plan to effectively communicate with the village council and residents?
Couldn't agree more, Your Honor. Communication is 100%. As you've seen from my resume, I come from a communications background, working in media for a long time. I have learned fairly quickly how to explain things to the public that are incredibly complicated in a way that everybody can understand. Government is not simple. Government is very confusing. There are a lot of things a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that have to happen to make things happen. We can't just, with the stroke of a pen, fix the roads magically, or none of us would be here, right? So explaining how those things work and those opportunities and explaining it in a way that layman can understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we need to get there based on what resources we have available.
Please.
All right, Jason, what are the 3 most important personal qualities that you bring to the position?
Excellent question, trustee. First things first, communication. I try to be overly transparent, I guess would be the best way to put that. I learned very early on in my elected official days that I wanted more information than probably I needed from our city manager. Overload me and explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. Give me the data that I need to make things happen. So I tried to take that and maybe not necessarily to that level, but give more information probably than is necessary, just so that everyone that I'm communicating with has a clear picture. My board was not used to 40 to 80 page DDA board packets, but then I came along and here they are. And now they're grateful for them and they understand a lot of the things that we do in programming that they didn't normally understand or didn't know that we did, which is great because now they're significantly more involved and they're a lot happier now that they can answer questions when people come to them and say, hey, what's going on with this building here? Oh, well, we're doing this and this and this. Number two is definitely the transparency and ethics side of things. Sitting in your chairs, I've been there and I know how important transparency is to all of you because you have a lot of people to answer to in your various positions across all of the neighborhoods. So giving you all of the info that you need and giving it to you, not necessarily in the raw, but as raw as I can make it, so that there's no questions, there's nothing hidden, there's no surprises. Finally, I try to be an open door leader for staff and for the community. That was something I campaigned on as an elected official. It's something I've carried over into my leadership going forward, is always trying to be there for staff if they have an issue, if they have a need, working with them to make that happen. I don't want them to feel like, if I need a new lawnmower at DPW, it's going to be 2 years because I'm not going to get it. I can't get time to meet with the administrator, things like that. So I try to be that type of leader that gives them what they need to succeed before it's too late.
Thank you.
Please share your knowledge of public infrastructure, including water and wastewater and streets.
Streets are, I understand the finance side of things and I understand some of the work that needs to go into how they're constructed and the best ways to construct them. Water and sewer, admittedly, I am a little on the weaker side, but I try to learn as much as I can and lean on department heads to understand the rest. From what I understand, DPW supervisor's been here for 20 plus years, so that's an excellent asset to have and can lean on decades of expertise to catch me up and fill in the gaps on things that I don't understand. And I'm happy to admit when I don't know something. So I'm sure they'll be incredibly pleased to know that I'll be asking 1.5 million questions to understand what we're doing, because then I can translate it to you all as well, so that we all are on the same page.
Do you have any questions for the village council?
Let's see. So I know infrastructure was a big thing during the goal setting. Was there anything specific in terms of infrastructure? Was it the lift stations? Was it sidewalks? Was it streets? Or was it sort of just an amalgamation of everything?
I think a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah. I think each of us had maybe their own particular issue.
Yeah, I think one of the big things we have to prepare for is the replacement of the lead and galvanized lines in the village. That's gonna be a huge project for us and a huge expense, so.
Yes. And as an unfunded mandate, it's
Correct.
Everyone is pulling their hair out. It's not just you, I promise. In Eaton Rapids, we're doing the exact same thing, trying to figure out where the money's gonna come from and looking at, that dreaded increase word, but water rate increases, do we bond it out? How do we do it? That is it's a bone of contention for a lot of different communities, so you're definitely not alone in that. It's my understanding that there is some funding for some new planning opportunities, master plans, and all of that type of thing. The current one is, I believe, 5 years old, if I remember right. So how, or is there any plan on reconciling those two going forward? In terms of, have a lot of the boxes been checked, or are we looking at just starting from scratch?
I could let my DDA president answer that.
We did just receive a grant for a consulting firm to help us work through that. We're looking at RRC redevelopment rate. So a lot of the big picture items that we've wanted to accomplish over the past 5-10 years. And I think this is a great way for us to take a step back rather than sort of rubber stamping the comprehensive plan like we've done for the past maybe 3 or 4 times. I think we'll take a big step back and utilize this consulting firm to say, okay, what are the big plans for the village? What do we really want to accomplish? And as well as, tying in all of the committees, all of the various boards, I think it's gonna give us a much more solid and constructive plan for the future. So, getting the planning commission involved, getting the Parks and Rec involved, getting the DDA involved, I think it's gonna give us a better vision and mission for the next comprehensive plan, which is due this year.
Excellent. I guess I'll stick with you then, Trustee Gunter. The RRC process, how are things going with that?
Quite well. Heather's been doing a lot of the filling in the boxes for where we're at. I'd say we're probably 3/4 of the way there, and now just receiving this grant money to go through it. I think the DDA contributed 6,000, and the state's going to contribute the rest. So this will be the catalyst to get it really going, moving forward. So I'm pretty excited. We'll probably have that done within, hopefully by the end of the year.
Excellent. Has the village explored bringing on like a fellow through RRC to fill in some of those gaps and pick up some of
Applied
the
for
slack?
one, we were turned down. It went to another community.
Well, we'll just have to do that again then. Let's see, one of the other things that was discussed and something that Heather and I had talked about was at the park with the footbridge and things like that. How are things going in that process? Has engineering been started, or in terms of, I know there was some talk of possibly replacing or repairing it.
That's
during
we're in the
goal
process of trying to do that,
Okay,
working on it. Yeah, we haven't done that yet. It was in our budget to do, and we're gonna try to do it soon.
sure, excellent. And then one last question, and I'm hoping you can answer this, is how is the standing relationship with MISTA, the MEDC? I'm sure it's pretty strong with being part of the Main Street program with the MEDC is concerned, but MISTA and Eagle and all those teams, how is there a lot of communication? Is it non-existent?
I think there's quite a bit of communication with MEDC, MISTA. We have our water treatment plant supervisor who talks regularly to Eagle, wastewater treatment plant as well. Anything else good?
You're making some headway.
Good.
Yes, I believe so.
That might be the best.
That's a good start. But the reason I ask is that MEDC especially, they have money that they are trying to throw around like candy, especially CDBG money for non-entitlement communities. And for example, I have 3 residential apartment projects in the downtown that are just about ready to go, and I get calls probably twice a week from our community action specialists at the MEDC. Where are they at? I want to get going on this CDBG application because there's $60,000 per apartment that's floating out there that they need to spend quickly. So hopefully if those relationships are there and we can foster those and have a nice little in to get some additional funding. The last question I have actually is for the treasurer, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do things look projecting?
Yeah.
5-year projections financially, I know things were kind of steady with fund balance, looking at some of the audits and things like that. Is that still the case, or? Is there?
Five-year fund balance, how are things looking?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's getting tighter, and
Yeah.
tighter, and tighter. So that's been, over the last couple of months, everybody's been taking a more proactive approach to their, own personal fund balances, and it's getting tighter. That's, so,
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jason.
That's everything for me.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks. Have a good afternoon.
It's okay, it is. In the meeting. Meeting again. You come. Yeah. Saturday.
James suggested Sunday at 2. We were being smart.
Did you ever? Sunday afternoon? Joe to visit your brother?
Oh, many times, yeah.
Whereabouts is the river?
I don't know how that would go over.
A few blocks from downtown.
That's what I do.
In my neighborhood.
Everyone's Saturday.
I'll go Saturday night.
His name's Jack Cook. And they used to live in St. Joe as well.
I could do that.
And
I guess
my sister, her dad still lives there, so. My brother, they go to St. Joe 3 more times a week because he's 100 years old.
I would prefer to wait for this particular decision, so what I'm hearing is we all want to wait, we don't want to give a decision today. So we get to, correct, so we need to go ahead and leave it to send. Our next meeting is not until.
What did you do?
And I will
He
not
was
be
a
in town,
girl.
I'm gonna be out of town on vacation,
Yes.
so,
He worked for the state for quite a while.
I'm
but
waiting
he
until
did,
14th, that's why he's saying, if I can speak beforehand,
15,
that would be
18
nice,
years.
but I don't know what you guys.
He was an adult.
yeah, when it's sort of fresh, but you sort of roll it over.
Find the demographics of where there was a need, and he had 7 or 8 counties. Before there was a need for, and then
So we
we buy
had-
the house and revamp it, or he would see that it got built.
I know
And
Sunday
he
is a crazy
enjoyed that
day
very much.
as far as a unusual
That-
meeting,
that's-
but it might be the most conducive to everybody. To me, today.
Around close to my river.
And I know I'm gonna be around Sunday as well.
He had some reason to stay.
Do you have a particular
Cause I think conflicts we start on Monday.
So, like the time.
It's funny because, I would get a country club for, and,
Whatever time.
on his keychain,
2 o'clock?
he has a. And we were talking about our
Yes.
kids one day, and I said, you won't get it for it.
What, can I hear
For a golf cart. I go, yeah,
Sure.
you're right.
Is it a public meeting?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yes.
No, thank you. I do. I
All
would take.
set, thank you.
This Sunday.
Okay.
Not Jerry. She didn't even smile. When Jason said something about the water or something, he said, yeah, you know, just like everybody else on their hair out. He said, then you of all people.
I get so many jokes about not having. Probably won't really. It's pretty clean up.
Did you hear that? Yeah. like your dad.
Oh, 223.
See, now, I mean, that's what I am.
Well, 223, you know how that's gonna be, that too late.
Jerry.
That's not good at, our time of day, you're gonna be one trail on there.
Tuesday.
And then, do what you gotta do, buddy.
I was
I'll go home, I'll just tell my wife it's here. What's that? Yeah, I can't see that.
Oh, I have some, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, to be a slap.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like I said, I went to lunch at noon on Tuesday with Becky Lamley. I get all the brick box.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to do that.
They say not 40.
No.
That's a long night.
Yeah, well, he really talked to her for months, other than
Nora, let's get at the water
a
treatment.
couple calls with the sweater, because they went in Florida.
We've been busy.
And then I never asked her how the white.
Everything's looking good.
Yeah.
Everybody likes that new water vendor.
All right.
A few growing
I didn't
pains,
go
but
to Florida.
All right.
yeah,
But we got to talking about
I am.
stuff they had when I was
Yeah.
working there. and
I live just
stuff
south,
like that.
I live in like, Berkey, Saline area.
I just did the.
Then I went over and had a cocktail
Oh,
with
okay.
Brad Miller, and then we got to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
When just go home.
Yes.
As long as she's been home.
Oh,
I said, Brad, I can't believe you're still here.
Yeah.
I want to stop it.
Yeah, you're talking about, they're back, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's still home. She doesn't have a date yet.
I grew up out in Lyons, so it would be, west of Sylvania, almost to, it butts up to the Michigan line where it jogs down from Renzi. Yeah, this is my 13th year. Yeah.
I think it was on there one
She
time.
I know Lisa and I have talked 100 times. So I got weird.
I got Lisa,
I don't even, you know, I can't see that. Hopefully, you know what, you don't need one of those.
No, we're still so I think they're just like.
I used to just send her comment to Lisa, so she was like, "What's so good?" And I she's like, "Wait a
Yeah. It's just a bunch of just.
I was like, "I know."
Just, and, Laura Danielle, she brought over meals.
I guess, I think it was online at one point.
My granddaughter says.
He says I got like
Oh, no, it's great.
That somebody that ordered it.
Sure. Really good, man.
It's already out.
Yeah.
Are they getting married out of this?
No, I wish I did.
Right. There's some Wilson. Lisa, you're okay with saying it? Yes, I think it's really like.
You're awesome.
Aren't I?
Yes, you are.
She's got it going on today. Better today than yesterday. That's all that matters.
So it's a 13.
Oh, that's really nice.
No, absolutely.
Will be available. I've got it
Yeah.
my grandson.
That kind of thing. So I let you know once I saw them.
They want me at 1:30.
Did you stay? So here is.
Saturday.
No, I said, we're gonna be going. Should we decide?
Probably gotta go to football.
So when are you done with school?
No, we have until next Friday. Yeah, but you guys have better done, aren't you? Or did
We were done in 27.
Yeah. Because you guys started, what, middle of August?
We usually start in August.
So you guys start 2 weeks before us? Or 2 weeks after? Yeah. So I don't know which way is better. We'll start early if you wanted to this year.
I know I'm set for this year.
And he had, bond work done, and work, so our building, he did work done, because they weren't ready for us. They weren't ready for us when we came in September.
Michigan removed the.
Yeah.
Baked beans.
I don't know.
And,
This is all
that's
what
what Rocky made earlier.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like straight, well, we just got air conditioning, so before it was having.
I was eating lunch.
So now it's like, oh,
It was nice.
oh my God. Yeah.
It's nice to be out before Memorial Day, but then we're back in before Labor Day.
Exactly.
And the Fulton County Fair is Labor Day. So we have all of our rich kids are usually,
Oh, I totally forgot about that. You're right.
so we're in for like a full week and then they get 4 days off for all that rich stuff. So it's kind of weird. They don't really start anything until.
And Old County Fair is. Yeah, I heard about that, nice. Good for you guys. That's great. Well, and so is Molly. That's good.
Danielle Gross.
Front and center.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Our understanding is you're here for some unfortunate circumstances.
Yes, she's doing much better.
Is
My
she?
husband's grandma, yes, so she's doing better though. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I am Bob Valdez and village president. So please share with the village council what you have done since your first interview to get to know Blissfield, the Blissfield community.
So I have actually continued to watch council meetings, continued looking at some different things going on, following Facebook. I do have to give a huge shout out to the staff today. They actually were kind enough to give me a tour of most of the facilities and I got to meet a lot of them. They were wonderful. all the research and web searching in the world wouldn't have equaled the amount I learned today. So I do, all of them were super wonderful. Just got to kind of see what they're doing day to day and talk to them and ask some questions. So it was great.
Thanks.
You guys have some awesome employees. They were super kind.
That's always wonderful to hear,
Yes.
and we hear it all the time. You guys should know that, we hear it all the time, that we do.
Thanks.
My name is Gwen Doucette, and welcome once again. Please take us through all the steps you would take as village administrator to develop our annual budget.
So first thing I would do is meet with the staff you already have. They're very knowledgeable, they know what's going on, and they know what their needs are. So they would be a critical and important part in the budget process. I would also very quickly get up to speed on what is going on, what the projects are, what our actual needs are, kind of what I call keep the lights on. What do we need to function? And then what do we need outside of that? And then I would bring that to council, keep you guys very involved in the process, make sure that we all have a good understanding that questions are answered. I think it's very important to be transparent through the budget process with the citizens as well, and make sure that if they have questions, they know those can be answered and addressed. And then hopefully very easily through that process, get to a finished budget overall.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm Barb McHenry. Please tell us the last time that you dealt with a difficult ethical issue. Tell us how you handled it and what the outcome was.
Well, my least favorite thing. I actually recently had an issue in actually January of this year with an employee who made some poor decisions and did not follow through on their duties. It was a really hard thing to deal with, not only because one, it's a sensitive issue being personnel, but also because it did create some issues within our city that were very public, that we had already had some issues with. So I think there's a couple pieces to that. One of them is we actually got in front of it. Instead of being secretive or hiding what had happened, we got out in front of the citizens. We did a press release letting them know what was going on. We were very open about it. And we didn't hide it at all. And it is a really unfortunate thing that happened. And I just don't want to go into the details too much because of the personnel portion of it. So that was kind of on the front side. On the back side, we did have to deal with that and move forward the best way that we can and as a team and just pull together. But I would say the biggest thing is just dealing with things head on, not trying to beat around the bush, not trying to run away from it, not trying to cover it up, just things have to be addressed. And, you know, certain things cannot be tolerated, and just handle it the best way that you can. And like I said, I think be very honest and straightforward with people is always the best.
Hi Danielle, I'm James Eitzen. How do you plan to integrate into our community?
So I love small communities. I am a mom of 3 kids, so I like communities where I can be involved, where my kids can be involved, play sports. So I instantly, you know, my kids would go to school here. I want to be a part of it, so I would volunteer. I want to participate in village functions and festivals. My door would always be open if I were to get this position. You know, I love people. I like interacting with them, and I like being part of the community and having that really hometown feel. And I mean, you guys it truly takes a village kind of thing, and I like that and want to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Danielle, I'm Mike Gunter. What do you believe you will find is the most challenging aspect of leading the Blissfield community?
I think the largest challenge for me will be coming from Wyoming back to Michigan. I am from here, but it's been some time. I've been in Wyoming for almost 11 years, and with the city of Rollins for 8.5. And while there are things here, you know, that are similar, it is still different. There's different rules, regulations. So I think the big thing, it won't be hard for me to do that. It'll just be time to do that and to really get to know all of those rules and regulations and what's going on here. So I think that'll be the biggest challenge, but I also think it'll be the most exciting. I'll get to learn a lot of new things, and it will be really, I think, cool to learn from the employees here that already know, and then maybe there's something I can kind of bring in to help intermingle, and what works there might work here, vice versa, and just be able to learn throughout that process.
Thank you. Hi Danielle and Jerry Hayes. What steps would you take to bring additional economic development to Blissfield?
So this is a tough one for me. I think that one shoe does not fit all. We would need to determine what businesses do we want. I think probably one of the worst things that we could say is we'll just take anything and everything, but maybe that doesn't apply. So I really think the big thing is what kind of businesses do we want to attract, and how are we then going to do that? Are we going to have shovel-ready property for them? You know, do we have the proper infrastructure to get them in here? Are there areas where we could look at some tax incentives or different things to help bring them in, and kind of look at those opportunities? So the big thing for me first would be determining where are we at and what are we looking for? Because like I said, I don't believe that we can just say, well, we want every business, because maybe we don't want every business.
Thank you.
In your experience, how do you motivate staff that you believe are not producing at full capacity?
Again, I think it's very important to be very upfront with people, to set expectations of them and what they expect from me in return. I think that those guidelines, those check-ins with them, I think rewarding good behavior and good employees really helps too, in creating a culture where employees want to do better. You know, I think what's stronger than even me pushing an employee or motivating them is if their coworkers have that standard too, and kind of hold them accountable a little bit and help with that. And I think if we could have a culture where that is the case, where we are all pushing each other to be better and hold each other accountable, would be best. And we've definitely come a long way where I'm at now, because when I started, it was not the best culture. So
Thank you.
very passionate about the employees too. So I want them to know that, I mean, really, I could come in or any other person can come in, but we can't do this job alone. So we need those employees that are doing a good job and that care about their job and that want to be here.
Hey Danielle, if you were talking to a person who was looking to relocate to Lenawee County, how would you specifically recruit them to choose Blissfield?
I would tell them about the wonderful people. Just in the short time I've been here this week and my memory as a child, everybody here is extremely kind and caring. And I think honestly, people draw other people to a community. I also think the quality of life and the things that Blissfield has to offer. You guys are right along the river. You guys have some beautiful country where you're not far to go camping, or if you want to go shopping or different things. You know, I think that has a lot to offer. You guys, I would say, are a very cute town with a downtown, and where there's some stores and different things that could draw people in. I personally am super excited for the dinner train thing. I want to do that really badly. So I would talk about some of those things that you guys have to offer to bring people in. The new aquatic center. I actually got to see that today, and that's amazing and could draw people in as well.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
How do you, as our new administrator, foster a team approach amongst our downtown business community?
Communication, which is probably how I would foster any team, is communicate. In fact, I'm probably sometimes an over communicator. I think that's a lot of times where people fall short, is when they're just not talking to each other and they don't know what their needs or expectations are. But again, we just have to talk to each other, work together, form partnerships, and
How have you successfully worked through employee conflict?
I actually feel like I treat this a little bit different. Every person is different. Every person, I think, I respond to a little bit differently, kind of based on their personality. So I wouldn't say I have a one approach and that's it. I try to work with how best that employee is going to respond. If maybe the employee is really good at something, one part of their job, but not the other, I maybe try to focus on that and boost them up in that area that they're really good at so that they gain that confidence to get better at the other part of their job. Maybe it's that two employees don't get along and there's just some personality conflict. I try to show different perspectives and work with them. I'm a very hands-on person. I don't like to micromanage whatsoever, but I like to be a resource and a tool to help the employees to overcome different things. I'm a very big advocate for, have we done everything we can? Have we given them the proper tools to succeed? I hate to see when an employee is struggling because they just haven't had the proper training or somebody's not giving them the proper attention to succeed. So I'm really big on that as well.
Thank you.
Danielle, what would be your number one goal to accomplish in your first year in office?
My number one goal would be really just to get a very good understanding of the community, get to know the employees, the council, what exactly the community is looking for as far as growth and development, and just really getting a good handle on everything going on around here.
Okay, so a resident has just entered your office to complain about the weeds growing around the two stop signs on Royal Street. Please take us through the steps you would take to resolve the issue from the moment the resident enters your office.
I would first listen to the resident and hear them out, hear what they have to say. I think a lot of time people want a sounding board. They want somebody that they know that they can come talk to and that they're going to be valued and heard. So I definitely think that's the main biggest thing, is just making sure they're heard. I would absolutely not be defensive. I would talk to them. Is it something on our side that we need to be taken care of? Is there maybe a reason? Because the other thing is sometimes citizens can get frustrated because maybe they don't know the full process or have a good understanding. So is it something, one, we can fix and we can move forward, or two, can I help them to have a better understanding of the process or why it's gotten to this point, and give them some really good information so that next time there's weeds growing around the stop sign, they're not feeling so frustrated about it, or they know why, or they know, hey, I talked to Danielle last time and it was taken care of, so I'm just gonna go talk to her again and I'm not gonna blast it on social media or whatever. I think the next part to that is, of course, following up with the employees. Why were the weeds growing around the stop sign? Maybe there was a water break that day and they didn't have time to get to it, or sometimes it's easy for us in our day-to-day to get tunnel vision and we just really didn't see the weeds around the stop sign. So I would follow up and see what actions needed to be taken after the conversation too. But I want that citizen to leave feeling good. And even if they don't agree with it, at least they either understand or they know it's going to be addressed moving forward.
Thank you.
Communication is key to success. How would you plan to effectively communicate with the village council and residents?
So I would talk to council, I feel, very regularly, probably through multiple different ways, council meetings. I would send updates, especially when it comes to specific projects or big ticket items that are going on, and make sure that you guys were constantly in the loop. I feel for the residents, I would have an open door policy that they could come talk to me at any time. I do think that social media can be a huge resource for us. Our local media, newspaper, different things can also be a resource for us where we can actually get out there and get some information in front of the citizens. You know, it seems like, and I'm sure this is true here in Rollins, we kind of have some things that come up every year. So right now it's potholes, you know, when are they gonna patch the potholes? If we can do a post and we can put some information out there to the citizens now, we don't get asked that question. So I think I would use that same approach in Blissfield and be able to really get the information out to people. You know, or maybe Lisa's had 5 phone calls about one item, instead of us taking the 5 phone calls and just fixing it and being done there, I think we have an opportunity there to get that news out, whether it be, like I said, social media or newspaper or just some kind of way to get that to the people so they know what's going on and they're involved.
Thanks.
Danielle, what are the 3 most important personal qualities that you would bring to this position?
I think that I've got a couple, but 3. I feel like a leader. I would not ask anybody to do anything I myself was not willing to do. I am very passionate about people in general, whether it's citizens, employees. I care about people, and I think that that makes me just a strong leader because of that. Additionally, I have worked for the city of Rollins for 8.5 years. I actually love my job. To be honest, would not look at leaving it if it weren't for the fact that I do want to be closer to family, and to get back to my roots. So I'm loyal, I am committed to my job and passionate. You know, I truly love working in local government. It is fun and exciting for me. It's rewarding to be able to see things develop and grow. I love when projects are successful. And then I think that just having a vast knowledge of different parts of local government. I currently am over Public Works and Community Development, which has been fun for me because I've been able to kind of dabble in a little bit of everything from water treatment, wastewater, to cemetery, to streets. I've done a lot of different project management. So I think I come to you guys, I work with DDA with kind of a wide range of skill set that I think would be very beneficial in this position.
Danielle, please share your knowledge of public infrastructure, including water, wastewater, and streets.
So I am definitely much more knowledgeable in streets than I am water and sewer. I would say that is my weakest area, but I do have a lot of experience. As I mentioned, I'm interim public works director, so I currently oversee our utilities, collection and distribution, and then both treatment plants. And our streets division. I actually am the project manager for, I would say, most of our streets projects. We do have a part-time engineer who's about 20 hours, so he and I share that responsibility. But we kind of have a toolbox that I've created over the last 5 years for our streets division. I actually also established a streets priority mapping. So we do wear course, which is actually a thin overlay. We do mill and overlay, and then rebuilds as well with utilities. I have overseen our wastewater treatment plant, which has been flooded twice now. Unfortunately, we rebuilt completely the first time, brand new. The second time was in January, and we are doing more of a remodel, I like to call it, rather than a rebuild, and I have overseen that entire project. And I do supervise our water treatment, which for the record is very different than your water treatment I learned today. But I do have quite a bit of experience working with the employees and pumps and different things like that, so. And grants, that's a big one. I have been super successful in obtaining infrastructure grants. The last 7 years, I've actually I think it's right about $2.4 million we've been able to get for the city of Rollins, which is huge. It's been great.
Do you have any questions for the village council?
I just have one, I believe. I just am curious, and I think I kind of asked this the first interview, but now that I'm here, wanted to ask it again. Just if whoever gets this position, what are your goals for the administrator?
So I think we all have our own goals, but I think as an umbrella, first would be the transition to take over where Darwin has brought us to. Darwin's our current interim. We've got a number of large projects currently in process. Wastewater treatment plant definitely needs to be completed. Our aquatic center still has a punch list. Those are probably the two most pressing. Then there's some other issues that follow that. I think what we're looking for is a smooth transition, someone to come in and get their feet wet quickly and start influencing the village in a positive way, bringing it up to speed and putting your own kind of stamp on what we do here. I think we've got a good working relationship as a council, or we're developing that relationship, and we want to definitely work to partner with the new administrator and get these projects moving and completed and bring new ones. We've got some great ideas through the budget process, so we'd like to get working on some of these new projects as well.
And did you guys start your goal setting for the budget already, correct?
We did, and actually
I think
Trustee
I missed
Gunter
that.
brought quite an extensive list that we all
Okay.
kind of just agreed upon. That was a great insight. So I think we've got some lofty goals, but some very achievable goals as well.
Okay. And what's your preferred method of communication from the administrator? Do you guys like to see like weekly emails? Is that too much? Do you do phone calls?
I like the one-on-one meeting
Okay.
that we have,
Okay,
meeting with you individually. I like that. That's where we can share thoughts and ideas.
and you guys do that now just weekly or how often?
Weekly, yeah,
Okay,
And then, of course, then when we have our meetings, there's a report from the administrator of what, some things that have been worked on, what needs to continue to be worked on, things of that nature.
I did see that. But you don't get any other department reports, so it's just from the administrator?
At this time it is, but we have been, more of the departments are starting to address what's going on with their area during a council meeting, not with a separate email or anything like that, but through a council meeting.
Okay,
And that's been something that's been coming through.
okay. Perfect.
I prefer digital communication.
Okay.
And Darwin has been pretty good at that. He's been keeping us updated on projects. For instance, DPW guys reworked the drop box, which I had no clue was even an issue. And he sent out the email, so that it kept me up. I learned something new. It kept us all up to date on the project. So those kinds of things. I'm not in town every day, so those kinds of emails are beneficial to me to keep me in the loop what's going on here in the village.
Okay. Perfect. Well, that's really all I have. I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity, and I do want to thank staff again. They were great today. So even if I don't get this, it was a blast to meet them all, and it was super fun. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Yes.
Have a safe trip home.
Thank you.
You should mention the perfect shirt.
Oh, yes. Go Blissfield.
Hey, have a safe trip.
Thank you.
We've discussed, we are not ready to make a decision this afternoon. We would like to digest and think about each candidate. We plan on meeting on Sunday at 2 o'clock to decide. We're not going to say which one we thought was better or anything like that right now. We're just gonna discuss our choices on Sunday and see what happens, is the way we're gonna go.
Okay.
Is that something that you think's okay?
It's absolutely, it's your process.
I know it's our process, but you're the one that's helping us with it.
Yeah, absolutely. You've had, 2 interviews, you've had the resumes, you've had the candidate questionnaires.
And we were fortunate to have them in person. That was awesome.
It was great. When Danielle said I'm in Michigan, I'm like, I gotta call you right away. Yeah, I mean, she made it all happen, so, it was unfortunate how it happened, but it all came together. And also too, that also gives you a chance, Bob, to get feedback from the key people, your staff who spent some time and heard these. Now they've heard 2 interviews, and I'm sure they've read the resumes, and I'm sure they've had conversations with the candidates. So you can gather their information and their opinions as well. So it gives you a little extra. It's the most important decision to make. Why not take a few more days?
Yeah.
And make sure it's what you really want to do. So I'll be around, and perhaps if you're gonna be here, I can call in or whatever and be a part of that. If you want me to either Sunday, I could be a part of it. So I was really, overall, I have to tell you, I see a lot of interviews. I was really impressed today. I don't know that I've seen 3 people do the amount of homework that they have done to prepare for wanting this job. They were well prepared today. They knew Blissfield pretty well. So good luck with your decision, and I'll be in touch. And
Yes, definitely.
all right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. go
Just a
ahead.
question just for context. The
So,
questions you all asked today, were those questions that each one of you developed, or was it Mr. Walsh that gave you questions?
Mr. Walsh.
Okay.
He came up with the questions as well as the assigning of the questions.
And if some of us had something that we wanted to ask, he would put it in there for us, so.
I think those questions though too were based off of our conversations that we had with Frank throughout this whole process, things that we were concerned about. And the things we wanted to ask, so he formulated the questions based on our conversations with him.
That's right. I mean, you've got a wastewater project going on, right? Project going on. There needs to be a question about that. So it's based on all of it. Thank you. I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Lisa's gonna post that for Sunday.
Yes, she is.
Nice to meet you, Frank.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you. I know this is good. Yeah, I will. Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Frank, thank you. Careful.